But proof is in the pudding. I went out and seen it 2 or 3 times.
He was a great rooster. Once upon a time and a half, but it's kind of hard for anybody to believe. But it's true. Yeah, it is true.
Back in the 40s, when my grandparents were running the farm, they raised fryer roosters, fryer hens, and they would slaughter a few of them at a time for their own use, and then they would sell them. My grandfather would chop the heads off, and my grandmother would start picking and cleaning the feathers. Well, he would just keep chopping and throwing them down there in a pile, and they got to the end, and one still was alive walking around. Now, he told me that, you know, on occasion, one would get up and they'd flop around and maybe live for a few minutes, but they'd always go ahead and die. But they had one that didn't die.
Any normal man would reach down, picked him up, and cut his damned head off again. But not Ole. He picked him up, stopped him from bleeding, and that was his headless chicken, and that was Mike.
And after it had lived for 2 or 3 days and was getting along fine, of course, neighbors started finding out about it, coming and seeing, and people are hearing about it.
You get a 6-pack of beer and go up there and you get to see the rooster.
That's when I started thinking, boy, I'd like to have that. I'd seen a 2-headed calf before at a fair, but not anything without a head. I mean, that's impossible.
A gentleman by the name of H.B. Wade had heard about it, and he was in the business of promoting different things, and he got in touch with my grandparents and convinced them there might be a little money made in it and taking it to sideshows and things like that. Mike was on exhibit in Salt Lake, out in California, was shown in Phoenix.
They showed him several times in Chicago,
Florida, Atlanta, and New York on the East Coast.
They had dreams of making money off of this rooster.
Seattle, Frisco, LA on the West Coast.
And paying the farm off and getting it out of debt and buying new farm equipment.
And then I understand, now don't hold me to this, that it went overseas to England.
He was a real rooster, though. He was real peppy and spoiled rotten after a few months. Nothing but the best for Mike, because he was worth lots of money.
Mike had, other than being taken around to the sideshows, tried to live a normal life. When they still had him on the farm, they let him loose with the rest of the chickens. He would go out and try to prune himself with his head, with his neck, really, because he didn't have no head like a chicken would. He would try crowing, which would more of a gurgling sound, the way my grandfather described it. They would feed him by hand, cracked corn through his esophagus, and used an eyedropper to give him water. So he did require some attention, but pretty much lived like a normal chicken, even though he didn't have a head. I think Lloyd and Clara thought that they were in the money, that they were going to go off and seek their fortune and retire off of this rooster. Mike drew a pretty good crowd at the sideshows, be it people that were just interested or thought it was a hoax. He had a lot of publicity about him, and a lot of bad publicity too. My grandparents received a lot of hate mail after that Miracle Mike was published in the Life magazine. A lot of people thought it was cruel to keep him alive, that they should have just went ahead and finished the job and put him in the cooking pot.
He was a healthy chicken all of the time that he was around. But they still blamed Ole. You should have cut his damn head off. But he didn't do that. He kept him.
Lloyd always thought that it could have made him, a lot of money, and it really never did. Mike had a problem. Sometimes he would start choking or strangling on its own mucus, and they kept a little eyedropper always handy to suck that out so he wouldn't strangle to death. If I remember how the story goes right, one night they had forgot this eyedropper at the sideshow and had him back at the motel room, and he started gurgling and strangling, and before they could find anything to keep him from strangling, he choked to death. Their dreams were kind of crushed. They made just enough to buy him a new farm tractor and to finish paying off a little bit of land that he still owed some money on. I really don't know what to think of why Mike lived. Was it just fate? Did this one particular rooster have just that much will to live? Or was it just because he was so dumb of an animal that he didn't even know his head was cut off? I think it's one of those mysteries of life, of really why it happened.
In order to eat a chicken, you have to kill a chicken. Now, there's just no easy way around that. I try to do it as easily on them as possible. I try to respect them all the way through the process to the table. All farmers take this as a matter of course. I guess I feel a bit odd about speaking about killing because I know many people have no experience of this at all. It's very difficult for them to see it as not being cruel, but I don't see it as being cruel. I see it as necessary. Somebody's doing it. If you eat meat, somebody is harvesting that creature for you.